If you're struggling with anxiety and you've made no progress, if you have been struggling with anxiety and are actively focused on the recovery journey, or even if you're using these videos as a coping crutch, I want to talk about a issue that I experienced dealing with anxiety, and that was dealing with the emotions that come with anxiety, specifically guilt. And I want to talk about how to really deal with that because recovering from anxiety isn't just feeling anxious, it's about feeling a whole array of emotions, feelings of sadness, impending doom, feeling numb. How do you handle all these emotions while you're going through recovery? In this video, I'm going to break it down. So let's get it started. So when all this started for me, it started off with a panic attack. And I didn't even know what a panic attack was. I was 22 years old and thought I was going to die. And I remember even thinking possibly that this was a panic attack. But deep down, I felt like I was hoping it wasn't. And when I was going through anxiety, when I was really struggling, I was finding anything and everything to cause what I'm feeling. I hate to say it, but I didn't want to admit that I was going through anxiety. And I had even grown up, and I went to university, and I even learned about psychology. I got a psychology degree, and I didn't want to accept that what I was experiencing was anxiety. And at the time, I didn't really want to admit it. And I didn't really want to tell myself this is just anxiety because I felt that if it was anxiety, that it may be a character flaw within me. That if it was anxiety, that meant there was something inherently wrong with me. And I remember when I was going through the journey, I had convinced myself that the physical symptoms that came with anxiety meant that there was something physically wrong. When I was struggling with anxiety, I was hoping it was physical because if it wasn't, if I felt that this was anxiety, then I felt like it was a character flaw. And I felt guilty for that. I felt an immense amount of guilt. Because if it was anxiety, then partly the issue was me. And if it was something else, if there was something physically wrong, something outside of my control, then it wasn't my fault. And what happened was, as I was going through this journey, the more I tried to fix it, the worse I got. And the more I tried to focus on getting this fixed and resolved once and for all, the more I let go of things like my job, my personal life, my social life. I let go of all that stuff because I needed to fix this. And it made me get worse. And it made me agoraphobic. Pretty soon, the guilt of anxiety turned into a guilt of feeling like I was a burden to other people, feeling like I was a burden to my friends, to my family, which brought its own levels of guilt, sorrow. I started thinking in this victim mentality that this happened to me and this wasn't fair and I didn't do anything to deserve this. And why doesn't anyone care about me trying to get better? And I would constantly be telling my story to the same people over and over, to the point where even the people that were very empathetic and supportive were getting tired of me hearing this story. And this really happened for a long time. I started feeling sad. I had convinced myself at some point that no, this was depression. I had convinced myself that no, maybe this was bipolar. Maybe I thought I had some physical ailment. Even though everything came out clear, I didn't want it to be anxiety because if it was anxiety, then I had a level of guilt. And looking back, after coming out of this experience, I can tell you without a doubt that I am the luckiest person in the world to have this be anxiety. Because if it was anxiety, which it was, then there's no long term consequences. If somebody has a physical issue, there may be consequences to that. And that can really lower the quality of life. But with anxiety, there really is no long term consequences. Once you focus on a few things, you can get back to living fully, freely. Nobody even has to know you go through this. And what I find actually even more incredible is that now that we've created a mentorship where I'm guiding people step by step, fully overcoming it, one of the most valiant and impressive things I see is that other people that have gone through it want to share their story, which is it's very unusual for me because I knew when I was going through this, I knew I never wanted to tell anyone I went through this because there was a level of guilt in the beginning where I thought that this was my fault. Once I focused on recovery and recovered, I knew this wasn't my fault. But I didn't want other people to label me. I didn't want other people to judge me. I didn't want other people to say, oh, well, Shaan has anxiety. So, don't say that around him or don't invite him because, he may get anxious. And so I always thought anxiety was going to be something that I was actually never going to tell anyone, which is very ironic now, right? Because I have a channel and, I have a mentorship guiding people through this. And the truth is that the reason why I do this now is because I understand that other people going through this need relatability. And the best way to relate is to tell people my story. But I still had this level of guilt. And I always had this guilt. And I always felt like, this was my fault. And you may be going through this too. You may be feeling like this is your fault, that you are a burden to other people, that even though instead of helping other people and improving and enriching other people's life, you're actually burdening them. And I have a very simple message to share, which is this is not your fault. However, this is your responsibility. Now, there's a difference and there's a distinction. See, saying it's your fault implies blame. It's somehow your fault for you falling into this. Now, let's be honest here. Anybody that goes through this doesn't want to go through this. They don't want to experience this. They don't want this to happen. And if they could just snap and make this all go away, they would. So assuming fault assumes that somebody did this on purpose. That is not true. Going through something like this is not honestly anyone's fault. My personal opinion, after helping so many people and seeing so many patterns, is I feel like honestly society focuses more on coping, more on managing, and they honestly even maybe set you up to fall into the cycle. And these things are outside your control. And I don't think falling in was your fault at all. I don't look at anybody. I've never looked at anybody going through this and thinking they were weak, or I've never felt like they're doing this to themselves. That being said, I know that the responsibility of recovering also lies within them, which is it's your responsibility to come out. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And once I understood that it was my responsibility, then I really focused on the right steps. One of the issues I find with people falling into the anxiety trap is that they start victimizing themselves. They feel like other reasons made them fall into the cycle. And maybe they did. Maybe the triggers were there. But nobody has ever recovered from victim mentality. And so if you're feeling these feelings of guilt, if you're feeling like this is your fault and it brings you down, I've been there. I've experienced that. But the focus on recovery is still with you. I've tried it in the past. I've tried to help people and I said, look, I know what to do. Just follow my guidance. And I thought that would be enough. It's not. I was a little bit naive. I learned recovery lies within the individual. I can only show you the door. I can only show you where to go, but you're the one that has to walk. And one of the ways to do that is by owning responsibility. Whatever situation you're in right now, it's okay. It's totally fine. Don't focus on blame. Don't focus on judging. Focus on this is where you're at right now. What do I need to do now? And taking responsibility. One of the things I find is that the people that recover really own that responsibility. And if you really look at it, guilt does nothing. It doesn't do anything to anyone. It doesn't it doesn't provide any relief. If anything, it just sabotages your own recovery. So if you're feeling these feelings of guilt, if you're feeling feelings of sadness, if you're feeling like a burden, it's okay. It's your now, it's not your forever. Allow these feelings to be there and focus on the right steps. Once you focus on the right steps, then these feelings will go away on their own. And you will be able to get the confidence that you need. And I've seen so many people get out. And not only were these individuals at one point really struggling, but now they're helping out in their own communities. They're actually a beacon of hope. And so no matter what situation you're in right now, just know it's temporary. It's not forever. And if you just focus on a few things and really own responsibility, well, then you can get out of it and recovery is yours. So if you really want to know more, if you really want to focus on the actual steps to overcome, if you really want to focus on overcoming these physical symptoms, these intrusive thoughts, these feelings of unreality and the emotions that come with it, the feelings of guilt, the sadness, how do you respond to these things while focusing on long-term freedom? I'll put a link down below to a free report, a free book that I've really laid out step by step how to come out of this once and for all. If you understand this report, if you understand this book, you never honestly have to watch another video again. You can really focus on long-term freedom and go back to living. So the link is down below. I'll see you in the next video.